Hello. I hope you guys are doing today here. Hope you have a good evening, good afternoon, or good morning, or whatever time of day you see this video. But this time, I decided to go back to show you about the original sundown towns. I'm gonna, I'm gonna let you listen to some video from a couple commentators. This time, I'm gonna go from. You know what? Let me just start from the past. It's the recent video, and one of the commentators is one guy I listen sometimes. His name's Tareen. He gives a historical part about what happened, the Black Massacre in 18 called the Devil's Punch Bowl. And then we go from here. There's this guy called Southern Life, and then there's a couple other people I want to push it to. I probably won't play the whole video.
What's going on, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Black Massacre series. Today, we're talking about Natchez, Mississippi, aka the Devil's Punch Bowl Massacre of 1865. The Devil's Punch Bowl episode is remembered on this date in 1865. This post-American Civil War atrocity in black history occurred in Natchez or Adams County, Mississippi. As black slaves made their way to freedom, the town of Natchez quickly went from a population of 10,000 to nearly 100,000 people. To deal with the population influx of recent freedmen, a concentration camp was established by Union soldiers to eradicate the slaves, essentially. Don Estes, former director of the Natchez City Cemetery, said, so they decided to build an encampment for him at Devil's Punch Bowl, which they walled off and wouldn't let him out. The camp was called the Devil's Punch Bowl because of how the area was shaped. The camp was at the bottom of a cavernous pit with trees on the bluffs above. The women and children were locked behind the concrete walls of the camp and left to die from starvation. Many also died from the smallpox disease. Over 20,000 freed slaves were killed inside this American concentration camp in 1 year. Black men were recaptured by the Union troops and forced back into harsh labor. Researcher Paula Westbrook adds, the Union Army did not allow them to remove the bodies from the camp. They just gave them shovels and said bury them where they drop. Today, the bluffs are known for the wild peach groves, but the locals will not eat any of the fruit because some are aware of what has fertilized the trees. Estes said that during his studies, he learned that women and children were all but left to die in the 3 punch bowls. Disease broke out among them, smallpox being the main one. And thousands died. They were begging to get out. Turn me loose and I'll go back home to the plantation. Anywhere but there. One researcher has noted that skeletal remains still wash up when the area becomes flooded by the Mississippi River at the Devil's Punch Bowl. Now, when it comes to this particular story of the Devil's Punch Bowl, I looked high and low to see if I could find any more additional information when it comes to this particular event. But this one had only a little bit put out there. And we know why that is. That is all by design. But I did find some additional information on another site that I would like to contribute when it comes to this event. In order to control the large numbers of African Americans, the Union Army created a wall encampment at a location known as the Devil's Punch Bowl, a natural pit surrounded by bluffs. Many of the captive ex-slaves died of starvation, smallpox, and other diseases. Estimates claim from 2,000 to 20,000 formerly enslaved people died here in 1 year. Some scholars have suggested that the stories have been embellished or fabricated by Confederate apologists intent on blaming the Union Army for such said atrocity. Says the word concentration camp, or say the words concentration camps. In Most will surmise the topic around World War II and the Nazis, but the hard labor, constant threat of death, and barbarism these microcosmic hells presented were unique to Adolf Hitler. In just 1 year, around 20,000 free slaves perished in the Devil's Punch Bowl in Natchez, Mississippi, USA. After the Civil War, a massive exodus of former slaves from southern plantations trekked northward in hopes of reaching a location of true freedom. But embittered soldiers, resentful the people considered property, were now free, had other plans. One tiny town's population mushroomed 12-fold from the influx, as researcher Paula Westbrook, who has extensively studied the Devil's Punch Bowl, noted. When the slaves were released from the plantations during the occupation, they overran Natchez, and the population went from about 10,000 to 120,000 overnight. Unable to grapple with an instant population swell, the city turned to Union troops still lingering after the war to devise a merciless, impotent solution. So they decided to build an encampment form at the Devil's Punch Bowl, which they walled off and wouldn't let them out. The Devil's Punch Bowl is so named for a cavernous, bowl-shaped gulch walled off by treetop cliffs, an area unintentionally made perfect for a hellacious prison by nature herself. A tangle of lush green, now top bluffs near the Mississippi River in Natchez, hiding past atrocities that took place when Union Army soldiers quarreled and captured those freed slaves in worse conditions than they endured previously as slaves on sprawling plantations. In the unrelenting heat and humidity of the Deep South, African American men toiled at hard labor, clearing thickets of brush, while women and children, not seen as a viable workforce for the task, languished without food or water behind the locked concrete walls of the camp to die of starvation. Barbarous treatment didn't even end when someone died. The Union Army did not allow them to remove the bodies from the camp. They just gave them shovels and told them to bury them. Bleak conditions of being cramped inside locked walls and forced to work until exhaustion or death also led to the spread of disease and illness, a little discussed but insidious issue for former slaves, killing up to 1 million individuals following the ostensive emancipation. However, a dearth of information about these mostly postbellum camps indeed leaves significant leeway for conjecture, and a smattering of conclusions say those detained prefer the slightly greater freedom compared to brutally found on the plantations. Additional critics dispute Westbrook and Estes and the number who died in the Natchez camps, saying the number is likely closer to just 1,000. But without methodical record keeping, the figure is impossible to verify with certainty. Either way, this black eye on American history is still one of the largest and most brutal acts of state-sanctioned death this country has ever seen. As the Civil War drew to a close and during the nascent stages of emancipation, those who had been thrust into slavery and putatively freed held a precarious place outside the society of their enslavement. Thus, legitimately freed individuals and escapees alike were captured and held in contraband camps, so named because as commodities, they were considered contraband by Union troops who had no qualms about perpetuating slavery for their own benefit. 3 such camps existed in the Devil's Punch Bowl area of Natchez. Historians' descriptions of the Devil's Punch Bowl have been loosely anecdotally backed by locals who describe human skeletons occasionally washing free from the location in times of heavy rains and flooding. Wild peach trees now dot the basin where human beings who believed they finally won freedom from slavery sweated through work for different captors until death granted the ultimate reprieve. But Mississippians know better than to taste the bitter fruit fertilized with the blood of atrocity. Like so much of the history of the United States, sadistic acts perpetrated by officials acting on behalf of the government have been criminally downplayed to lessen the shame and facilitate collective memory loss. But there can be no doubt, whether unintentionally or by design, thousands succumbed to inhumane conditions at these camps under added duress of lacking the freedom so basic its so-called cornerstone of the nation. Whatever the full truth about the Devil's Punch Bowl, it's a veritable guarantee no history book will be honest or thorough enough to shed light on the excruciating conditions akin to Nazi concentration camps, or even that forced slave labor continued while America readjusted its crooked and tarnished halo after the Civil War. Now, what's interesting about this one compared to episode 1 is I had to go between about 3 different passages of articles just to gather this information because it was so spread out and some of them had more information than the other. Of course, this one had more information. But that just shows you that they didn't want people to know that black people dealt with their own personal Holocaust. So bad, in fact, that a lot of them wish they could have went back to being slaves. It was that bad. And this happened in 1865, the so-called year that black people or black slaves got their freedom, their so-called freedom. This was literally enacted pretty much right after because they did not want them to leave. They didn't want them to go and explore and actually build up an infrastructure. You heard why I said the population grew from like 10 to 120,000. That was fearful for them. So they had to do whatever it took, and then they created this. A little known fact about another stain, yet another dark stain on American society. Well, that's going to conclude episode 2 of the Black Mask.
Well, you say, James, well, that's history. That was the past. We in the present, right? Surely that there's some people don't have the same bitter, anger, resentment. Surely that there's people still down in that part of Mississippi and other places still don't have that anger and bitterment, right? Well, I'm about to take you to another person's page and listen to what he got to say. His channel is called Southern Life. Watch this. In 2021-22, this is what he encountered.
Alright, we're at Glass Park headquarters. We got 9 beautiful basement windows. On today's video, we'll be talking about the most racist places in the United States. Our top 10 list is based off of our personal experiences living in the Deep South. Remarkably, we did find some statistical information about hate in the South, and it turns out that my personal experiences correlate perfectly with these maps. When you study these online maps that break down racism, 2 states stand out the most. That is Alabama and Mississippi. The state of Louisiana, infamous for its criminal system with more inmates than any other state in the country, with a strong correlation between my personal experiences, online statistics, and the mapping of crime, racism, and hate. I can tell you that this is the best list you're going to find on this topic in the internet. We have extensively traveled the region of the country where the most concentration of hate and racism exists. The purpose of this video is to help people who are moving to avoid putting their families in an environment they do not want to be in. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes. Any comment that is disrespectful will not be allowed in the comment section. We invite educated dialogue, but if you're not professional and your goal is to offend other people, we will not tolerate you on this channel. YouTube already has a built-in filter that does not allow these type of comments anyways. So, what is racism? In the context that we're using it in this video, it is a malintentioned prejudice towards other people. In the southern region of the United States, this has been perfected over the centuries. When I moved to Alabama, I thought that I knew everything there was to know about racism. However, Alabama was like a school of racism that I went through. Something you'll never be able to forget. And this is why I encourage people to not take these options for their families as destinations to move to. Because once your family is exposed to this mentality, you will never be able to get rid of those traits. So racism, in the context that it's happening in the United States right now, in these places in the Deep South, works like this. It turns the victims into perpetrators. Racism has been perfected, and those who are initially the victims of racism will soon become the perpetrators of racism themselves. Unknowingly, your auto-defense to racism is to react in a racist way yourself. And this isn't something that you do on purpose. It is something that underlyingly you are being taught to subconsciously and indirectly directly have a reaction to how other people are treating you. People who are racist understand that being that way is the most bitter, hurtful, and depressing sentiment that a human being can have. So by turning your enemies, your victims, into racists, you are perpetually putting upon them the same burden that you are carrying. Therefore, racism breeds racist. And racist people understand that turning other people into racists that they don't like is the most hurtful thing that they could do to that person. Because now that individual will be depressed, sad, they will feel hurt and bitter, full of resentment, taking actions that they don't agree with, but they're doing it anyways, despite the fact that they're aware that it leads to nothing productive. When you look at the history of the United States, in particular that of slavery in the Deep South, you come to understand that today you have people who are resentful and who feel hurt about the things that happened to their people in the past. And that is exactly the sentiment that racist people would want you to feel. If somebody is wanting to make you angry and you become angry, you are giving that person a remote control to your emotions. You don't want to become energized behind their actions. You want to take the batteries out of that remote control. That even if there's no batteries, you still know what buttons they were pushing. The best reaction is to take the batteries out of your control and make sure that even though they're pressing those buttons, that the channel's not going anywhere, that you're not giving them the power to control your emotions. If you've never experienced racism that is this elaborate, you hand over the controller to this person and let them pick what channel you're going to watch. I'm at the stage where I've taken the batteries out of that controller and, well, there's no emotion behind it. Let's get going on this list. Number 10 is Montgomery, Alabama. This is where I spent 1 year of my life. It was the scariest, most violent, and most depressing year of my life. Many people who live here don't respect nothing of the civil rights movements that happen in this city. But when you first come to Montgomery, you might want to see the Rosa Parks statue or learn a little bit about the area's history, or maybe cross that bridge in Selma. And you just hand that controller to anybody. What you're unaware of is that these people are watching your every move and they're taking advantage of your sentimental attachment to what you're feeling by seeing those things. You're basically putting all your poker cards out on the table, and there's professional poker players that are going to take advantage of that. And they have a really good poker face. When you land in Montgomery, you're like one of those controllers that has like 1,000 buttons they can push. Cheapest metropolitan area in the country for a reason. Nobody wants to live here. The reason they don't want to live here is because how hateful the people that live here are. Number 9 is Birmingham, Alabama. You're going to hear Alabama a lot on this list. Just like the entire state of Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana are red on that map, those 3 states are going to dominate this list here as well. There's an online list of all the people that were murdered in 2021 in Birmingham, Alabama. Among them were Latinos who were murdered by none other than police officers. That doesn't include the ones that accidentally hit by vehicles, the ones that accidentally had workplace accidents. As I started to meet other Latinos in the Montgomery and Birmingham area, it was immediately present how many people were being hurt in car accidents or workplaces. Those are the ones that are covered up pretty well. The police in these 2 cities will outright tell you that they're not going to investigate criminal offenses that are perpetrated on people that are not native to Alabama. They stand behind State Law 56, the most unconstitutional law in the United States, affected by any state, which the Supreme Court was not interested in fighting because of state rights issues. Basically, if you're not an Alabama citizen or a U.S. citizen, you are a free kill, a walking target. But hey, they're not too interested in asking you for your ID or finding out if you're legal. If you're not from Alabama, they're just going to assume you're illegal. They're not going to care if you have your papers. It's a racist law. It doesn't matter. That's just their pretext in order to be able to say, hey, if you come to Alabama, whether you're legal or not, if you're not from here, we're not going to protect you. If you are a foreigner This is not a state you want to live in. Number 8 is Greenville, Alabama. Segregation is in full effect here. If you are not the right race and you walk into a business in this town, there will be a serious commotion. People here know the black people cannot go to the businesses downtown, and the white people are not allowed to go to the black businesses. I was not aware of this. I went to Greenville and I didn't want to eat downtown. I was kind of in the mood for something like barbecue. I found a barbecue place that had some good ratings. When I showed up to the restaurant, all of the customers walked out, and the people that were running the business looked at me like it was my fault that the customers walked out. On top of that, they literally closed the business right there on the spot, told me to leave because they're not closed. So despite I wasn't in the mood for eating downtown, we had to go eat downtown because we really weren't welcome in the other businesses. When you experience this, you feel depressed, you feel unwanted, you feel unwelcomed, you feel like you caused somebody else hardship when really they're the ones that are causing it to you. Getting into a barber shop or a car wash or a restaurant in many towns in Alabama can get you into a very serious situation. Usually the business owner's reaction is that you purposely went there to harm their business and scare away their customers. And this is how you are programmed to become racist in Alabama, where when you're not being racist, you're paying the price of being embarrassed and being put in awkward situations all the time. It feels like you're the bad person because you're not racist. Like you should have known not to go to this business. Start to be programmed to know that you have to be racist, not because you sentimentally feel that way, but because if you're not like that, then you're going to end up in some really awkward situations. Number 7 is Pulaski, Tennessee. This is where the K was founded. These types of southern racist places have a way of making you feel uncomfortable, making you feel guilty as if you were the bad one. It's like the less racist you are, the more you're going to suffer. It's real easy. If you just go with the flow, you fight back, they're going to make your life miserable. It's easy to say that you are whatever you say you are in a place where it's not being put to the test constantly at your expense. When I went to Pulaski, I went to pump gas. The pump was open, and I was really surprised that the pump was open because where I'm from, we don't do that because people would steal the gas. So I mentioned it to them that, hey, in Florida where I'm from, you don't leave the pump open because people would steal it. So I walk outside to pump the gas, and 3 guys walk outside with shotguns and watch me pump my gas. That these people in these small towns are going to make you feel uncomfortable.
Damn.
Moving on to number 6, Camp Hill, Alabama. Condition of this town speaks for itself on the effect that hate and racism has on a town. There's a massive correlation between extreme
not in
poverty,
2022,
high
right?
crime, and racism. They all go hand in hand. This was one of the first towns that I went to in Alabama when I was up there, and I had no idea the reaction that I was going to get from the people of this town. Everything in the comments was threats, hate.
No.
Are you a low-income American on food stamps or Medicaid? If so, you are now eligible.
But they say that in America we're supposed to move on, right? That some of the stuff is just in the past. Supposed to be in the past. Why you guys keep bringing this up? This is what they tell us in America. Don't bring it. Maybe it'll go away. Really? Now you see where the history. There's a saying goes. Nothing's new up under the sun. Racism in America is part of what it is, and they still feel like that. I have even talked to some people that were from Ohio that went down there, and they still got this North versus South thing still going on down there. And as a white person, when they found out that by them being white and being from Ohio, they copped an attitude with them. This was someone told me this happened to them in Tennessee. So you got some people in Tennessee, some carry that mentality in different parts of the South. See, some places in America, the past don't move on. The spirit of it still lingers in the people. and you're supposed to separate and stay separated. As far as I'm concerned, that's why I said until Jesus come back, racism always gonna be around. Look from 1865 to now. Think about it.
Everything in the comments was threats, hate, people saying horrible things. I did this video like I would have done any video in Florida, but in my naive mindset, I didn't understand the political, racist context that these people were looking at it from. On top of that, segregation. I shouldn't have even been in that town to begin with. I was literally walking into the lion's den and had no idea where I was. It's to the point where everything's a threat, every outsider's evil. There's not a lot you can do as an outsider to change their mind. Just not go there and stay out. Number 5 is Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Despite having a lot of good suburbs, this city has a reputation of killing anybody who's from here that picks up a little bit of fame or success. They don't even care about their own successful people. So what makes you think they're going to care about you as an outsider? Don't let the affordability of this place and the fact that there's new houses and new suburbs confuse you into thinking that this is a place you want to put your family. That's a mistake that I made with Montgomery, Alabama, and I can assure you Baton Rouge is way worse. I found some Spanish people in this town and I talked to them, and I could tell by how racist they had become, the way they've been treated in the time they've been here. Back to the theme about not caring about themselves, the town has some of the worst obesity, crime, and just about every bad statistic you can think of. Number 4 is Vicksburg, Mississippi. You know, the job of hospitality, maybe a restaurant or a hotel, is to make the customer feel wanted, welcome, and relaxed. The people in the South have a way of making sure the complete opposite happens, and it's a horrible place to start or invest in a business, knowing that your employees are not going to treat the customer like a star that needs to be cared for, but as a hindrance. Their own presence is an annoyance to them. And to the untrained eye, you might just think you're getting bad customer service, but after living in Alabama for a year, I understand what's really happening. After a visit to Vicksburg, Mississippi, I felt drained, depressed, and I was like, yo, I'm on vacation, I'm traveling across the country, I should feel happy, I should feel good. Why am I getting these guilty feelings? It's a special type of ability to make somebody who's having a great time feel unworthy. Moving on to number 3. Jackson, Mississippi is one of the most messed up places you could put your family, and while there are nice suburbs, when you see the statistics on demographics for the nice suburbs and for the city, you'll start to see some things that don't even look right to someone who at the time was living in Alabama. Whether you're eating at a restaurant or staying at a hotel, you're going to feel like it's a competition to see how bad you can be treated. But you know what? Not everybody that lives in these places is like that. And every once in a while you meet somebody who smiles, is genuine, and if it wasn't for those people, I don't understand how it could be bearable to live in these types of places. Because there are people out there, even though everything around them is gloomy and sad and depressing, they have a smile, and their smile becomes your smile.
Hi, my name is Tammy, and I would like to give.
I want to interject right here. So those who moving down south, be careful where you move to. And those who come into America, be careful where you go to throughout the United States, especially if you're a person that look like myself or with someone that look like myself, because they still have that mindset. I mean, and once you get like north of, I say, certain places, and that's just a few states where he was at, but there's more other states connected to Mississippi, Louisiana, Arkansas, Texas, certain places in Texas you need to be aware about. So if you're a foreigner, listen to this video, or anybody that think about coming to the States, don't go to them places like that. Don't go places. Then people want to stay backwards, let them stay backwards, as far as I'm concerned. let them stay backwards. Anybody, because as most of the country progress, their racism will keep them in the past because of ignorant ways. And see, as long as you see, it's not just black people in the past. There are white people down there are still in the past. To see black people and other people as a threat, that's a shame, ain't it? I mean, that's pretty sad when you sit down and think about it. But they carry from generation after generation after generation. Racism is carried that way. But yeah. So any of my subscribers in another country, you come to the United States, don't go down south. Don't go to them southern cities. And if you do go down south, go to Atlanta, Dallas, Houston. You come to Florida, maybe, to go to a certain city. If it's in the Carolinas, go to Charlotte. Don't go to them small towns, outskirts, because you guys still got backward ass people.
Hi, my name is Tammy, and I would like to give you a few reasons why you should consider the
Smile becomes your smile. Moving on to number 2, Coleman, Alabama. This one's a little controversial. Before I went here, I had heard from people that were from here and other people that this was the most racist place in Alabama. So I went there, and I was treated nicely by everybody, and I had a really pleasant experience. While the rest of the towns on this list made me feel very uncomfortable, Coleman didn't make me feel uncomfortable. But it's because I look white. Even though I'm Hispanic, they looked at me and they said, this is one of ours, and they treated me like a gem. But here's the problem. How would they treat an African American that went to this town? On the comment section about this video, there's not 1 or 2 or 3, there's dozens of people who said this town is a sundown town, it's unwelcoming, it's unsafe, and the reason this town is on this list, despite the fact they treated me good, because it's not how about you treat white people, it's about how you treat everybody. And if one person, it's like Martin Luther King had a quote, where an injustice in one place is an injustice everywhere. If it's not safe for one person, then it's not safe for everybody. You can't sit here and say, well, it's great for white people, but what about everybody else? You can have the best incomes, the lowest crime, all the best statistics. But if you're going to exclude one person from being able to benefit from that, just simply based on who they are, we've got some subscribers that are from Coleman, Alabama. I send you my greetings, as well as Birmingham, Montgomery, Baton Rouge, all these cities. I sent everybody on this list a greeting because despite the fact of all these things that happen, you're still here watching her videos, and I really appreciate that. And just like that lady who had a nice smile for me in Jackson, Mississippi, and they changed my day, you people who are still here with me, you're also giving me that big smile, and I really appreciate it. It's moments like that that help us who are struggling with these issues to just keep pushing forward. And I've met people like that as well in Montgomery and Birmingham, who all they had to offer was just a smile, a genuine facial expression that helped the next person get through their day. Number 1 is Uniontown, Alabama. I had days when I lived over there that a random stranger, just a small gesture, like a smile from another person that I didn't know, was so meaningful to me because it helped reaffirm that we're going to get through this, man, that not everybody's like that. I cherish those moments because they got me through a lot. And now I try to do that. I try to just give a random stranger a smile and a nice calming gesture. And I've noticed that not everybody, but to some people, whatever they're going through that day in their life, they really appreciate that. They needed it. And I learned that not in the comfortable life that I was living in Florida, but the experiences that I lived in Alabama taught me the importance of something as simple as a smile. As you can see here in this video, the roads in Uniontown are in really bad shape. We're no longer looking at footage from Uniontown. This is what a normal town would look like. But Uniontown, the roads are unpaved, the buildings are falling apart. And I made those comments during the video, but they didn't take it as recognizing that their town was in that bad of a condition, that they don't have nice restaurants, they don't have nice anything. They just noticed that who it was coming from. That's all they saw. The people in the comment section of this video, which was one of the most powerful videos we ever did in Alabama as far as viewership, they couldn't see beyond the fact that the person delivering this message, what race they were. That's all they could see, and for that reason, to me, this will always be the most racist town possible. And I ended up having to go on a talk show called The Black Belt, and I had to explain on that talk show that I'm not like that, and in fact, a lot of people there are more mature, and they came to the same conclusion that I didn't really say anything of that nature. I mean, to be labeled that way in Montgomery, Alabama, that's like 67% black, as a minority, really wasn't going to go well for me. That was pretty much like cancel culture coming after me, but the people that were there to kind of determine if that was the case did not side with the people that were saying that. They actually said that I made some valid points, and some people came on the talk show and said, hey, he's right, look at these roads, I mean, in front of a school, potholes. But the people here have gone through so much that their reaction is just to assume that everybody's that way, to assume that any small thing is an attack, because that's what they're used to, that's what they've been put through all these years. So I don't blame them for being that way. I just wish they were still holding on to that little bit of hope. And looking back on it now, instead of being mad at them for what they tried to do to me, I just feel sad to understand what they've been through. It's like if you grab a dog and it's been abused its whole life, it might just bite a stranger that had no bad intention for it. But if that's all it's been treated like, then how do you expect an animal to react like? And humans are the same way. And there it is, there's that map again. If you want to slow it down, maybe pause it and look at that map. That's more of an analytical thing, but it correlates very well with everything we've gone through. Alabama with its history, Mississippi and Louisiana, these places, unfortunately, based on what they've been through, they've almost been trained to react in a certain way. All we can do is be that person who smiles and who does a kind gesture to the next person to help alleviate the pain that all of us are going through. You know, this isn't a video that I wanted to make. I feel like a song from Hank Williams where he said that the songs that you guys want me to sing are all the sad, depressing stuff, and that's not really what I'm into. And in this video, I literally stared at the screen for like 3 hours before I actually sat in front of the mic and decided to do it. It's not a topic I want to touch. It's just something that bothers me, that's difficult to talk about, brings back emotions of anger, embarrassment, shame, disgust, guilt. Brings back so many bad feelings to keep touching this subject. And I feel that I've gotten over it, but like the other day I was doing a beautiful video on the beach and somebody came and they threw it in there in the live stream, got on that subject. And you know,
I'm gonna go to another, but yeah, and but yeah, just be careful when you come to the United States, certain places, states, and if you're from here, be careful when you go down south.
Hi you guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Reese and you are
Because the past have never completely left.
Wanted to talk about something else controversial today because it's just something that needs to be talked about that we don't talk about enough. And I'll tell you what it is in just a minute. I want to thank everybody for tuning in and watching my previous series of Why I Love Christianity. And now I'm going to talk to you guys about something I found out about in one of the nomadic community Facebook pages I belong to. It's something that I thought wasn't a thing anymore, but I don't know why I would think it wasn't a thing anymore. 2016 should have showed me that it was still a thing. But it's called sundown towns. And for those of you who are younger like me and didn't grow up in the civil rights era or pre-civil rights, I'll explain what a sundown town is. Sundown town is also called a gray town, and it means that it's a place where people of color and immigrants are not welcome at all. It's a there is not a single person of color in their census at all. And they don't want you to stop there. They don't want you to try to live there. They sure as hell don't want you to open a business there. And, at first I thought, oh, this must be something that's only in the Deep South. So there's nothing to worry about. But that's not true. Upon doing more research and talking to people all over our lovely country, the United States of America, I discovered that it's a problem everywhere. There are parts of the Northeast that have sundown towns. The Mid-Atlantic has them. The Deep South, the Southeast, the Southwest, the Midwest, and the Pacific Northwest have these problems. Now, in the Pacific Northwest, from my research, I have discovered that they have a problem with anybody who comes up from California and people of color in general because we're too liberal, or you know what they like to call us. I won't repeat that because it's not a polite thing to say. And over here, I was surprised to find out that there are places in Virginia and North Carolina even. I knew South Carolina has some issues, but North Carolina and Virginia are not exempt to these problems. It's usually westward towards Kentucky and Tennessee and West Virginia where we have those sundown towns. So if you come over here where I am on the East Coast, right there on the ocean, you should be fine because we have military bases and lottie-dottie and everybody and their grandmas here. So we have inclusion, and you don't usually find people, let's say white supremacist people in this area. And if they are, they're very hush about it, and they don't let you know. So the sundown town thing is really bad. So what I want to let you guys know is it hasn't changed in 300 years, and hopefully it will, but in all honesty, if you go into a sundown town, you go in at your own risk. These people are horrible. They call themselves God-fearing, and they, for some reason, believe that they own everything and you shouldn't have any of it. They don't want you there. They don't want to do business with you. If you have to get gas, pay at the pump if it's at all possible and get the hell out of there. Don't hang around. They don't want you there, and they make that blatantly obvious and apparent to you from the get-go. You'll get stares like, what's that N-word doing here? Or any other racial slur you can think of, because they don't like other ethnicities. Don't let the sun set on you there, because that's when you might see white hoods, and you might see pitchforks and all sorts of crazy things that you thought only happened in the movies, and they're coming after you. So get the hell out of there. Don't let the sun set on you there. It's not safe. And I felt the need to make this video because I was looking at the comment section, and there are a lot of people like, well, I would have done such and such. No. You're one person. Or maybe if you travel with your family, you're one of 1 or 6 or however many you are against 600 to 1,000 people who all have one thought in mind, ending your existence because they don't think you deserve to exist. They don't want you polluting their town, as they say. So don't stand your ground, because the law there is not on your side. And they're just going to, especially if it makes it to the news, they're going to say that you went in there as a horrible savage being, because that's what they think about all of us who are POC, and they think that that our white brethren who are not like them, they think they're race traitors. So you're not safe even if you're white and an ally. So just don't go there. On the news, they're going to paint you out as a usurper or someone who went there to deliberately cause problems and got what they deserved. And somebody was like, well, all we need to do is just get a bunch of POC and our white supporters, and we'll go down there and march against them. Once again, you're going to be painted out as the villain. We need to change things as a country, as a whole. Our country needs to come together and let these supremacists know Donald Trump, back in 2016, let them know, I'm on your side. I'll pardon you. That's why a whole bunch of shit happened. That's why what happened January 6th happened with the white supremacists. Because Donald Trump told them it was okay. And the reason why they didn't act like this back in the past was because we had leadership who had sense enough to realize maybe we shouldn't be acting like this, you know? We had higher evolved beings running our country. And it's kind of sad that in all these years of evolution, humans haven't evolved in the United States of America enough to realize that we're all pretty much the same species, unless we're from Krypton or somewhere. We're all the same species. Last time I checked, Superman and Krypton were not real. So we're all the same species. We're all the human race. We're all Homo sapiens sapiens. We all have different ethnicities, meaning where we came from and how we're raised, and different backgrounds. We have different melanin because of where we grew up and how our people evolved. Those of us who stayed around the warmer area, we developed melanin. We got darker. People who are from light, colder areas, in order to survive, and blend in, they stayed pale and got lighter. You get what I'm saying? They got lighter. So that's the only difference between us. And we all need to start realizing that Homo sapiens sapiens, we need to stick together, because if we don't, we're going to pretty much end up dying out, in all honesty. That's what happened to all the other human species that were there when we first all evolved. We either mix with them like Cro-Magnon did with Homo sapiens to make Homo sapiens sapiens, or you died out like Homo erectus and the rest of them. So, I'm sorry, that was evolution. But yes, we need to start evolving and understanding that we, as a people in this country, could have life so much better if we embraced the fact that we're all people, we're all human, and we embraced our differences instead of trying to separate ourselves away from them. If we celebrate and embrace each other's differences, we can definitely work like a well-oiled machine. Because think about it. In your human body, we're all one organism, but each different part of us has something it's supposed to do that it's good. A hand will never be a brain, but a brain will never be a hand. You get what I'm saying? The brain can control the hand and help the hand do things that we need done for our organism, but we all are each a different part of the body of life, and if we work together in harmony, we can function as one organism. That's all I'm saying. But I didn't want to tell you.
I'll stop right here. But I like her analogy on it. That's true.
Do you want to rebuild your gums and teeth while getting rid of tooth decay in just 10 seconds per day?
Too bad that.
Then stop what you're doing right now.
Did you know that in Racine, Wisconsin, black residents are 12 times more likely to land in prison than white residents, and that a town in Arkansas is home to the modern-day KKK headquarters? Today, we will go over the 10 most racist cities in America. To determine which American cities are the most racist, we have examined personal experiences shared by many and analyzed the history, amount of hate crime, racial disparities, and economic statistics of each city. Remember though, not everyone in these cities is racist. The many good people just happen to have one too many racist neighbors. Number 10. Danville, Illinois. In the 1800s and the early 1900s, Danville was quite notorious for racially motivated riots and street fights that typically ended in the deaths of many. One of such incidents is the
Be careful going to
1883
Illinois.
Danville riot. Fast forward to over 100 years later, and although the street fights have ended, racism is still present in Danville. Sometime in May 2022, a group of protesters displayed a White Lives Matter sign the same day a gunman allegedly fueled by racism shot 13 people in a supermarket situated in a predominantly black neighborhood. Aside from the full-blown public displays of racism and violence against people of color, Danville's census figures also tell a tale of racial discrimination. Danville has one of the widest gaps between white and black residents in terms of education, income, and health in all of Illinois. For example,
While 75% of all white families in Danville are homeowners, only about 31% of black families own their homes. Also, while about 20% of Danville's white population live below the poverty line, nearly 50% of the city's black residents are below that line. If the figures don't mean much to you, maybe the personal experiences of others will. A person of color who visited Danville with their family had this to say on TripAdvisor about a local inn. They stole my $150 deposit and told us our kind wasn't welcome. Very rude workers, very racist, and need to be shut down if you ask me. I will never, never, never stay at this location in Danville, Illinois again, and am going to file a lawsuit. Number 9, Rochester, New York. It is the 21st century, and from the Burning Man Festival to Louisiana Mudfest, party concepts are getting crazier with each passing second. The only kind of parties we didn't expect to exist are racist parties, but as it turns out, they are still around. In July 2022, a wealthy Rochester couple were accused of throwing a racist party, and this speaks volume about the alarming level of racism in the city. According to ACT Rochester's Hard Facts, the racial disparities in Rochester are deeper and broader than in New York and the U.S. as a whole. In Rochester, African American children are more than 4 times as likely as whites to be in poverty, and Latino children experience poverty at an alarming rate of more than 3.5 times that of white children. Furthermore, both African Americans and Latinos experience poverty at rates that are more than 3 times that of white residents. These alarming racial disparities also manifest in the life expectancy of residents. According to research from Rochester Area Community Foundation in Monroe County, your chances of dying before 65 are 46% if you are black, 52% if Latino, and only 26% if white. Needless to say, Rochester definitely earned its place on this list. Number 8, Fresno, California. Seeing how California is home to a total of 74 hate groups, making it the state with the most hate groups in all of America, it should not come as a surprise that one of its cities has earned a spot on this list. Being California's 5th largest city, Fresno is always in the spotlight, but for all the wrong reasons. Over the last 2 decades, more than 3/4 of the reported hate-driven crimes in Fresno County, 268 out of 355 incidents, have been perpetrated in Fresno, and the majority of these crimes were reportedly fueled by racism. For nearly as long as these hate-fueled crimes have persisted, people of color residing in Fresno have told the story of the racial divide in the city. To support this claim, Alan Autry, a former mayor of Fresno, used the term "a tale of 2 cities" when asked to describe the disparity in income, economic investments, property value, and quality of life between North Fresno, an area that is home to Fresno's white population, and South Fresno, the part of the city that is mainly populated by communities of color. Today, the census numbers show that only 13.76% of Fresno's white population are below the poverty line, as opposed to the 33.19% of the black population and 28.02% of the Hispanic. Number 7, Trenton, New Jersey. Trenton is the capital city of the U.S. state of New Jersey, and unfortunately, it is also the 7th most racist city in all of America. One of the many ways that racism rears its ugly head is racial profiling, and in March 2022, an unarmed black man, identified as Jajuan R. Henderson, became a victim of this racial injustice after being shot and paralyzed by officers from the Trenton Police Department while grabbing an iced tea from a car. Aside from racial profiling and police brutality, racism in Trenton manifests in the form of systematic racism in housing, employment, and healthcare. For example, during the pandemic, studies show that Hispanic New Jerseyans were most likely to have contracted the virus, and black New Jerseyans were more likely to have died or been hospitalized from the virus than other residents. According to experts, these disparities exist to this day because systematic racism is deeply rooted in nearly all institutions in Trenton. Number 6, Peoria, Illinois. From an assistant fire chief who gained negative attention for using a racial slur on camera, to the president of an indigenous insurance company who came under fire for making a racist post on Facebook about the Super Bowl halftime performance, it's safe to say that racism is at an all-time high in Peoria. As is common in most racist cities, there is a clear divide between the white population of Peoria and residents of color, most of whom live in the South Side, a low-income neighborhood reserved for residents living below the poverty line. The median family income for South Side residents is less than half of the average resident's family income, and only 32.6% of black residents own their homes, compared to 76.1% of white residents. The good news, however, is that Rita Ali, the present mayor of Peoria, has welcomed the activities of the Joint Commission on Racial Justice and Equity, an organization founded to promote racial justice and equity within the county and city governments. Hopefully soon, the efforts of the organization will begin to make significant progress in the right direction.
One thing my prostate
Wow.
cancer hasn't changed.
So even in your northern states, you have, in the Midwest states, you got to be careful.
I want to make
The efforts of the organization will begin to make significant progress in the right direction. Number 5, Racine, Wisconsin. What if we told you that in Racine and Wisconsin as a whole, black residents are 12 times more likely to land in prison than white residents? Does this mean that white residents commit significantly fewer crimes? Probably not. According to experts, these deep disparities result from pervasive racial bias in the state's criminal justice system. If you thought the glaring racial disparities in Racine only affect the prison system, you could not be further from the truth, because even the high schoolers in this city are deeply affected. Nearly every year, students of color who attend the Racine Lutheran High School come forward to say that they have been harassed and dehumanized. But not much seems to have been done about it. On the aspect of numbers, things don't look good either, because census figures have shown that, on average, black families make around $26,880, which is less than half of the $63,507, the average income of white families. That said, it's not hard to see why Racine is constantly ranked among the worst cities in the United States for people of color, especially African Americans, to live. Number 4, Naperville, Illinois. The fact that Illinois has 3 entries on this list makes you wonder what the hell is happening in that state. Well, a lot, as it turns out. In 2019, some black patrons of the Naperville Buffalo Wild Wings were asked by an employee to move to a different table because a white patron felt uncomfortable sitting next to them. Barely a year later, in 2020, a woman called Naperville's Asian residents roving carpetbaggers during a council meeting. 2 years later, census figures prove that not much has changed where racism is concerned. For example, despite being a minority group in the city, the amount of black people living below the poverty line in Naperville is almost 3 times the number of white residents below the line. In addition to this, research conducted by students of North Central College proves that Naperville is indeed a sundown town with policies in place to stifle businesses owned by people of color. Number 3, Milwaukee, Waukesha, West Allis, Wisconsin. Among the many ways to determine just how racist a city really is, the most efficient method is by asking residents. With this in mind, Suffolk University conducted a survey of 500 residents of Milwaukee. When the results came in, it was discovered that while most white people voted excellent or good when asked to rate the city, 80% of black respondents rated the city fair or poor. It is also worthy of note that all of the survey's participants identified race relations as the second biggest issue plaguing the city. A deep dive into Milwaukee's history shows that it is the second most segregated city between black and white populations in all of America, further proving that racial relations in the metro area is indeed an issue that needs urgent attention. Having said that, it goes without saying that systematic and structural racism have deep roots in Milwaukee. In recent times, this racism has manifested in terms of maternal and infant mortality, educational levels, disabilities, and unemployment. You might think twice before entering Milwaukee, especially if you are a person of color. Number 2, Harrison, Arkansas. Previously known as a sundown town, where black Americans faced the threat of death if they were outside after dusk, depending on whom you ask, Harrison is either the most racist city in America or the second most racist city. And frankly speaking, between the race riots of the early 1900s and the influx of several white supremacist organizations during the late 20th and early 21st centuries, it is easy to see why the city has earned such an unsettling reputation. Not to mention the modern-day Ku Klux Klan is headquartered in Zink, which is just a short 20-minute drive from Harrison. Although the year is 2022, a trip to Harrison would certainly give you a feel of 1844 because, according to census figures, 94.13% of Harrison's residents are white, and of the 8 black people living in Harrison, nearly 100% live below the poverty line. The numbers don't look good for other people of color either because, despite being minority groups in the city, they are more likely to live below the poverty line and less likely to be employed. Also, if you ever visit the town of Harrison, brace yourself for the not-so-warm welcome you would receive from the controversial billboards that read, "White Pride Radio" and "Anti-racist" is a code word for anti-white. On the bright side, it's worthy of a note that Harrison's government and well-meaning citizens have been cooperating with Harrison Community Task Force on Race Relations, an organization set up in an attempt to reform the city's racist history. Number 1. Waterloo, Cedar Falls, Iowa. In 2018, a study carried out by 24/7 Wall Street, taking into account gaps in income, unemployment, and home ownership along racial divides, ranked the worst cities for black Americans to live. The Iowan city of Waterloo emerged at the top. According to the published results, no U.S. metro area has larger social and economic disparities along racial lines than Waterloo, Cedars Falls, Iowa. Going by the statistics cited by the report, the black unemployment rate in Waterloo is over 5 times the white unemployment rate. Furthermore, while 73.2% of white residents own their homes in Waterloo, only 32.8% of black residents can say the same. Although some sources have come forward to dispute these numbers, claiming that the gap is no longer as wide, one thing is certain: the racial disparity in the city of Waterloo remains a cause for concern. To this day, racism still plagues the city of Waterloo. In 2021, an incident involving derogatory terms being used on Waterloo East High School girls basketball players during a game confirmed that racial bias has rooted itself in the school system. But what about America's most dangerous cities? Check out the video.
Well, I'm gonna stop. Well, that's it. Yeah, this stuff is real. And people say it's just the past. But you see, in America, the past never really leaves. And that's what they don't want to tell you. And yet, it's maybe not every person, but there's people that hold certain position of power in these cities, in these towns, in the states you just heard, in the cities. If you're a black American, if you're going to stay in America, I suggest go where the big black population is at. Mainly maybe the Carolinas or Georgia, and maybe certain places in Texas. But if you decide to get a break away from the mental strain of racism, basic thing to do is maybe go to the continent of Africa or someplace else. That's the only way you can downplay and get away. And not saying that things may be perfect over there, but you're going to be constantly bombarded and reminded just based on the hostility of your skin color. Something that it was not out of your control, that God blessed you with. That these people who have insecurity and a spirit that go from generation after generation, to keep that over you because you're black or whatever nationality. So, yeah, it may be true, it's not with everybody, but just be careful where you go. And any of my foreigner listeners, when you come to the United States, that's what they don't want to tell you about. Don't be fooled because you see one black person in government. Don't be fooled. Or one Latino. That's just the front. It's who put them in there. Don't be fooled. It's not always equal. The media is a delusion. But it's never really about inclusion. So my name is James. I hope this is an eye-opener and think, and maybe one day we'll come together. There'll be a certain percentage of people that will, but you always gotta remember that it's out there, and it's good to teach your children what's going on. Till next time, you guys take care, be blessed, and see you on the next video. But hope it educates your children as well as other people. And one day God will blow this all away. Take care.